Senator Bail Organa observed the strategic holoprojections floating above the meeting table while Mon Mothma reviewed the Alliance's latest loss reports. The generals present exchanged somber glances, all reaching the same inevitable conclusion. The rebel forces, as brave and determined as they were, simply did not possess the necessary resources to face the vast military might of the Galactic Empire. Bail crossed his arms, his face marked by years of fighting a war that seemed increasingly lost. Mon Mothma finally broke the silence, her voice carrying a truth that everyone was reluctant to admit. They needed the Jedi, the legendary guardians of peace who had been hunted to near extinction. Without them, without those who could face the Sith and their dark powers, the rebellion was destined to fail. Princess Leia Organa accepted the mission with the determination characteristic of her lineage. Her father had entrusted her with crucial information about one of the last surviving Jedi, a master named Obi-Wan Kenobi who lived hidden in the remote sands of Tatooine. The message she would carry was not just a request for help in a specific battle, but an appeal for the complete restoration of the Jedi Order, for the formation of a new generation of Guardians who could balance the Force again. Leia recorded her message in the small astromech droid R2-D2, carefully choosing each word to convey the urgency of the situation. She knew she was asking Kenobi to leave his self-imposed exile, to confront the ghosts of a painful past and rebuild something the Empire had worked tirelessly to destroy. However, before she could complete her journey to Tatooine, Leia's diplomatic ship was intercepted by an Imperial Star Destroyer, and she found herself face-to-face with the terrifying figure of Darth Vader, the Emperor's Dark Fist. R2-D2 and C-3PO escaped from the captured ship in an escape pod, falling like a shooting star through the arid atmosphere of Tatooine. The Golden Protocol droid complained incessantly about his companion's recklessness as they crossed the endless dunes under the two scorching suns of the desert planet. Eventually, both were captured by Jawas and sold to Owen Lars and his nephew Luke Skywalker, a young moisture farmer who dreamed of adventures beyond the monotonous horizon of his life. Luke was working on cleaning the droids when R2-D2 accidentally played a fragment of the holographic message, a beautiful young woman dressed in white who pleaded, "General Kenobi, years ago you served my father in the Clone Wars. Now he begs for your help again. This is our most desperate hour. We need the Jedi Order to return." The image flickered and disappeared, leaving Luke paralyzed, his eyes wide with possibilities he barely dared to imagine. During the night, R2-D2 escaped from the Lars property, determined to fulfill his mission to locate Obi-Wan Kenobi. Luke woke early and, discovering the droid's disappearance, set out in his landspeeder with C-3PO to track him through the desert. The search led them dangerously close to Tusken Raiders' territory, the savage sand dwellers who attacked Luke without warning. When all seemed lost, a strange, guttural cry echoed through the rocks, driving away the raiders, and a hooded figure emerged from the shadows. The old hermit identified himself as Ben Kenobi, and hearing the name, Luke's mind made the immediate connection. "Obi-Wan Kenobi? The Clone War General? You knew my father!" exclaimed Luke, his voice mixing excitement and reverence. Ben nodded slowly, his blue eyes showing layers of painful memories and secrets yet unrevealed. In Ben's humble dwelling, carved into the rocky walls of Junland Wastes, R2-D2 finally played Princess Leia's complete message. The holography showed the young senator kneeling, her words echoing with intertwined despair and hope. "Obi-Wan Kenobi, you are our only hope. The Empire has destroyed everything the Jedi fought for, but the galaxy still cries out for its guardians. We ask not only for your sword, but your wisdom to train a new generation. We need you to rebuild the Jedi Order. Please, help us restore the light in the galaxy." When the message ended, Luke jumped from his chair, his eyes shining with an intensity Ben hadn't seen in decades. "Wow, Jedi, you're a real Jedi!" shouted Luke, surrounding the old master. "I want to be one too." Ben Kenobi remained silent for long moments, his aged face showing the weight of decisions that had haunted his conscience for nearly 2 decades. He looked at Luke, seeing in that impetuous young man painful echoes of another eager student he had trained, someone whose destiny had ended in unimaginable tragedy. The last time Obi-Wan had tried to rebuild something, To train someone with great potential in the Force, the result had been Darth Vader and the fall of everything he loved. "Luke," he began carefully, his voice laden with hesitation. "The Jedi path is not as glorious as storytellers make it seem. The Order fell not only because the Emperor betrayed us, but because we made terrible mistakes in our pride and blindness." He stood and walked to the window, watching the twin suns descending on the horizon. Rebuilding the Jedi Order means not repeating the same mistakes of the past. It means questioning everything we thought we knew about training, the code, our role in the galaxy. You ask for a burden that may be too heavy to carry. Obi-Wan Kenobi stood by the window, the last rays of the twin suns painting his aged face with orange and red tones. He turned slowly to Luke, and for the first time, his features showed the vulnerability of someone carrying scars too deep to be completely healed. "Your father, Anakin Skywalker, was the best starfighter pilot in the galaxy and a cunning warrior," began Obi-Wan, his voice trembling with contained emotion. "But above all, he was my brother, my closest friend. I trained him, believed in him, and failed him in ways that still haunt me every night." Luke opened his mouth to ask, but Obi-Wan raised his hand, asking for patience. Anakin was seduced by the dark side of the Force, transformed into Darth Vader, the Emperor's apprentice. And it was my arrogance, my certainty that I knew the right path, that contributed to his fall. How can I accept to train you, knowing I might make the same terrible mistakes? When Luke and Ben returned to the Lars farm only to find the vaporators still smoking and the charred bodies of Owen and Beru, Luke fell to his knees before the destruction, his reality shattering into irreparable fragments as he understood that Imperial stormtroopers had tracked the droids there. Tears ran freely down his face as he remained kneeling in the ash-stained sand, everything he knew reduced to rubble and memories. Obi-Wan placed a firm hand on the young man's shoulder, silently sharing his pain. When Luke finally stood up, his eyes showed a determination forged in tragedy. "There's nothing left for me here," he said, his voice firm despite the evident pain. "If you're willing to teach me, then I'm ready to learn. Let's rescue the princess and rebuild the Jedi Order together." Obi-Wan studied the young man's face for long seconds, seeing in those blue eyes the same mixture of determination and impulsiveness he had recognized in Anakin decades ago. But there was also something different, a humility born from loss that perhaps could make the difference. "Very well, Luke," he finally agreed. "But if we truly want a restored Jedi Order, we cannot do it alone. We need Grand Master Yoda, the wisest and most powerful Jedi who ever lived. He survived the Purge and hid on a remote planet. Only with his guidance can we avoid repeating the mistakes of the past." Luke nodded vigorously, wiping away tears and firming his resolve. Together, they set out for Mos Eisley, the spaceport city most infested with scum and villainy in all of Tatooine, in search of transport off the planet. The droids followed them faithfully, R2-D2 beeping nervously while C-3PO expressed his usual concerns about the questionable choices they were making. In the dark and smoky cantina of Mos Eisley, among smugglers, bounty hunters, and fugitives of all kinds, they found Han Solo, an arrogant Corellian pilot with a confident smile and a dangerous debt to Jabba the Hutt. Beside him was his co-pilot, the imposing Wookiee Chewbacca, whose brown fur and intimidating height contrasted with Han's relaxed posture. When Obi-Wan mentioned they would eventually need to travel to Dagobah to find Master Yoda, Chewbacca let out an enthusiastic roar of recognition. "Chewie knows that name," Han translated, surprised. "Says Yoda was a great friend of the Wookiees during the Clone Wars, that he fought alongside them on Kashyyyk when the Separatists attacked. If you want to find that little green master, then we have a deal." Han negotiated an exorbitant price, but with the Imperials getting closer and very few options available, Obi-Wan agreed to pay 10,000 credits up front, plus 15,000 when they reached Alderaan. The Millennium Falcon took off from Tatooine under heavy fire from stormtroopers, and the subsequent journey led them straight into a deadly trap when they emerged from hyperspace where Alderaan should have been, finding only debris orbiting an asteroid field. The Death Star pulled them in with its tractor beams, and the group found themselves invading the Imperial battle station to rescue Princess Leia from the detention cells. During the chaotic escape through the Death Star's corridors, Han and Leia exchanged insults while hiding from stormtrooper patrols. "Could your highness stop giving orders for a second and let someone who knows what they're doing take control?" complained Han, firing his blaster at approaching soldiers. Leia stared at him with furious eyes. "If you really knew what you were doing, we wouldn't have almost died in that trash compactor, you arrogant smuggler." Luke tried to mediate between the two while Obi-Wan guided the group, deliberately avoiding any confrontation with Vader, focused only on escaping with their lives and completing his greater mission to restore the Jedi Order. With everyone aboard the Falcon, Han programmed the coordinates for Dagobah according to Obi-Wan's instructions. The ship jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind the monstrous battle station and beginning the journey to the swamp planet where Grand Master Yoda had hidden for nearly 20 years. During the flight, Leia remained quiet, processing the destruction of her homeworld and the loss of everyone she loved, while Luke watched space through the cockpit window, contemplating the extraordinary path his life had taken in just a few days. Obi-Wan meditated in silence, mentally preparing to confront his old master and convince him it was time to come out of the shadows, that the galaxy needed the Jedi again, and that this time they would do things differently. The swamp planet revealed itself as a hostile and challenging environment when the Millennium Falcon landed in a muddy clearing surrounded by twisted trees covered with bioluminescent moss. Han Solo descended the boarding ramp, looked around at the foggy swamp, and immediately began complaining. "Great, just great. Of all the planets in the galaxy, it had to be a stinking swamp. Chewie, check if anything in this miserable place won't corrode my ship." Leia crossed her arms, her eyes still showing the recent trauma of Alderaan's loss. "If you stop complaining for 5 minutes, maybe we can actually find this Master Yoda and do something productive." Han rolled his eyes. "Your Highness, with all due respect, you're no longer in the Imperial Senate giving orders. Here it's just mud, strange creatures, and lots of humidity." Luke and Obi-Wan had already moved away, following the Force's guidance through the dense vegetation, while R2-D2 beeped nervously about the strange sounds echoing through the swamp forest. Yoda's hut was small and humble, half submerged in the dark waters of the swamp, and the Grand Master himself initially presented himself as an eccentric and confused creature who rummaged through Luke's equipment looking for food. Only when Obi-Wan emerged from the shadows, respectfully calling his old master, did the charade end and Yoda reveal his true identity. The small Jedi, with his 800 years of wisdom, studied each member of the group with ancient eyes that seemed to see through all masks and pretenses. "Rebuild the Jedi Order, you want?" said Yoda, his hoarse voice carrying decades of solitary exile. "Terrible mistakes we made, arrogant we became, blind we were. Why believe should I that this time different it will be?" Obi-Wan knelt before his master, expressing all the humility and determination he felt. Leia stepped forward, her voice firm despite the recent pain. "Master Yoda, the galaxy is dying under the Empire's yoke. If the Jedi do not return, then darkness will win completely. But we need your wisdom to ensure we don't repeat the mistakes of the past." Yoda remained silent for long moments, leaning on his twisted staff, pondering the words and feeling the currents of the Force around these hopeful young people. Finally, he nodded slowly. "Agree, I do. But not here, rebuild we can. Ahch-To, the first Jedi temple, there we will go. Where everything began, restart we must. There, the ancient lessons are, and mistakes of the past study we can." The journey to Ahch-To was long, and during the trip through hyperspace, Yoda gathered everyone in the Falcon's common area and told the complete story of Anakin Skywalker. Luke and Leia listened in shocked silence as the Grand Master revealed how the young slave from Tatooine became the Order's most powerful warrior, how he was consumed by fear of losing those he loved, and how he finally fell into darkness, becoming Darth Vader. "Siblings, you are," revealed Yoda, observing the stunned expressions of Luke and Leia. "Children of Anakin and Padme Amidala, both are. Separated at birth, protected you were. But now, together train you must, and perhaps where the father failed, the children triumph can." Obi-Wan went after other Jedi, with Han Solo who received his reward when they made a quick stop at a rebel rendezvous point. settling his debts with Jabba and freeing himself from the complications of his previous life as a smuggler. Before leaving, he said, "Well, Princess, it was an interesting adventure," he told Leia, his characteristic smile masking deeper feelings. "But now that I have my credits, I think I'll go my own way." Leia stared at him, something unsaid hanging between them. "Of course, Han. Don't let the cause of galactic freedom interfere with your comfortable life plans." He hesitated on the boarding ramp, Chewbacca roaring something in Shiriwook that made Han roll his eyes. "All right, maybe I'll stick around a little longer. Someone needs to make sure you Force mystics don't get into trouble." Luke smiled, recognizing that despite all the bravado, Han Solo had found something to believe in. Yoda simply observed the exchange with wise eyes, knowing the Force works in mysterious ways, connecting people who need each other. On Ahch-To, on the rocky island where the first Jedi temple had been erected millennia before, Luke and Leia's training began under Yoda's direct guidance. The ancient ruins surrounded a central clearing, and the sacred trees whispered with echoes of countless generations of Jedi. Obi-Wan assumed primary responsibility for Luke's lightsaber combat training, while Yoda worked directly with Leia, recognizing in her a unique connection with the Force that manifested through empathy and heightened perception. "Different paths exist in the Force," Yoda explained to Leia as they meditated at the cliff's edge, the furious ocean waves breaking on the rocks below. "Warrior, your brother will be, but you, visionary and diplomat, are. Equally important, both paths are. Balance the Order needs." Luke practiced tirelessly, his lightsaber cutting through the air in increasingly complex patterns, while Leia learned to feel the currents of life through the Force, to connect with living beings across vast distances, to see future possibilities in the mists of time. Weeks after training began, Obi-Wan returned to Ahch-To, bringing with him two figures that made Luke and Leia stop training immediately. Ahsoka Tano, a Togruta with distinctive and impressive facial markings, walked with the confident grace of an experienced warrior, her eyes showing decades of survival and secret resistance against the Empire. Beside her was Ezra Bridger, a young human with dark hair and a determined look who had been trained in the shadows during the dark years. "I found them on Yavin 4, explained Obi-Wan, clearly relieved and energized by the discovery. Ahsoka was Anakin's Padawan during the Clone Wars, before leaving the Order. Ezra was trained by another survivor. Both have fought against the Empire in their own way." Yoda studied the newcomers with approval. "Grow, our new order begins. Together train, all of you must. From the past learn, for the future build." Ahsoka immediately formed a strong connection with Leia, recognizing in the young princess a resilience forged in loss that she herself knew intimately. "If you will accept me," offered Ahsoka, formally kneeling before Leia, "I would like to be your Padawan, to learn from you while also sharing what I survived." Leia accepted gratefully, and thus the training pairs were formed. Luke with Obi-Wan, Leia with Ahsoka as Padawan, while Yoda deepened both Ezra's and Ahsoka's knowledge in the Force's deeper philosophies. 3 years passed on Ahch-To, years of intense training, deep meditation, and the gradual rebuilding not only of Jedi skills, but of a renewed philosophy that learned from the catastrophic mistakes of the previous order. Luke had become a formidable swordsman, his style combining the classic elegance taught by Obi-Wan with an improvised ferocity typically his own. Leia had developed extraordinary perception and healing abilities through the Force, her empathic connection allowing her to sense disturbances across entire star systems. Ahsoka flourished under Leia's guidance, becoming not only an even more lethal warrior, but a compassionate leader. Ezra matured, his unique connection with living creatures deepening under Yoda's teachings. But during a particularly intense meditation session, Luke suddenly convulsed, his eyes rolling back as visions flooded his consciousness. He saw battles, ships exploding, rebels fighting desperately against overwhelming Imperial forces. "They need us?" gasped Luke when the vision passed, sweat covering his face. "The rebel base. They need help now." Yoda placed a small hand on Luke's arm, his expression grave. "Ready you are not. Incomplete the training remains. Hasty the Jedi always were, and to disaster that led." The Death Star emerged from hyperspace like an artificial eclipse, its impossible mass blocking the stars as it positioned itself in orbit of Yavin. Aboard the station, Emperor Palpatine watched the tactical screens with sinister satisfaction, his presence distorting the force around him like a spiritual black hole. Beside him, Darth Vader stood motionless, his mechanical breathing echoing in the silence. At the Rebel base, alarms sounded as pilots ran to their fighters and Mon Mothma watched holographic projections showing the approaching Imperial Armada. The battle began with waves of TIE fighters descending on the Rebel X-Wings, the sky above the moon transforming into chaos of explosions and laser tracers crossing in all directions. The Rebels fought with desperate courage, but the Imperial forces were overwhelming in number and firepower. Rebel fighters exploded one after another as debris rained over the dense jungle. Ground defenses fired at Imperial transports, but for every destroyed ship, 10 more took its place. Stormtroopers established positions around the base while droids advanced heavily through the trees. Inside the command bunker, Mon Mothma exchanged somber glances with the remaining generals. "Order the ceasefire," she finally said, her voice breaking. "Transmit our surrender." The silence that followed was heavier than any explosion. The Imperial transport's ramp descended with a hiss, and Darth Vader emerged first, his black cape billowing as he marched through the ranks of kneeling and disarmed rebels. Behind him came Emperor Palpatine, his yellowed eyes studying the prisoners with cruel delight. "What a glorious day for the Empire," hissed Palpatine. "The rebellion finally crushed. Lord Vader, execute the rebel officers." Vader activated his crimson saber, approaching Mon Mothma. But before he could raise his weapon, multiple lightsabers ignited in the jungle shadows. Figures leaped from the trees, their bright blades cutting through the stormtrooper ranks with devastating precision. Luke Skywalker landed in the center of the Imperial formation, his blue saber spinning as he deflected blaster fire. Leia moved with lethal grace, her green blade cutting weapons from soldiers' hands. Ahsoka fought with her 2 white sabers in deadly dance, each movement flowing into the next. Ezra coordinated jungle creatures that attacked the Imperial flanks under his command. Obi-Wan advanced calmly through the chaos toward the Emperor, while Yoda descended like a green storm, his tiny saber moving so fast it seemed a luminous blur. The rebels immediately grabbed their weapons again and joined the counterattack. Han Solo grabbed a blaster and started firing while shouting orders. Leia and Ezra worked together to protect the rebel soldiers, creating telekinetic shields that deflected heavy fire. Luke and Ahsoka converged on Darth Vader. "Vader!" shouted Luke. "You don't have to continue serving the darkness. Anakin Skywalker still exists within you." Vader raised his red saber. "Anakin Skywalker is dead. I destroyed that weakness long ago." Ahsoka circled to the left. "Sky Guy, I know you're still there. I feel you. Let us help you return." The combat that followed was fierce, 3 styles colliding in a whirlwind of energy. Vader fought with devastating strength, Luke with impetuous passion, Ahsoka like water finding impossible openings. "You trained her well, Anakin," commented Luke. "That part of you never died." Vader pushed both back with a force wave. "The light side is weakness." Ahsoka blocked a brutal strike. "No, Anakin. Compassion was your greatest strength. It's that love that still exists in you." Obi-Wan and Yoda confronted Palpatine, a fight that distorted reality around them. The Emperor unleashed torrents of lightning that Yoda absorbed and redirected, while Obi-Wan attacked with classic precision. "You think you can defeat me?" laughed Palpatine. "I am the dark side." Yoda leaped high. "Mistaken you are. Darkness, temporary always is." Obi-Wan coordinated perfectly with Yoda, pressing the Emperor who retreated for the first time in decades. Ezra coordinated massive attack of native creatures breaking the Imperial lines. Leia led the rebels in coordinated counterattack. Luke managed to partially disarm Vader, cutting his mechanical fist. Vader fell to his knees. Luke approached, saber pointed downward. "Father, I know there's still good in you. Let us help you return." Ahsoka knelt beside him. "Sky Guy, you taught me that Jedi never give up on those they love." Under the mask, Anakin fought an internal battle. Memories flooded his consciousness. Padme, young Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, his children offering redemption. "I have committed terrible crimes," said Vader, his voice breaking. "There is no redemption." Luke extended his hand. "There is always a way back." Vader's hand reached out and took Luke's. Ahsoka placed her hand over both. Through the Force, they felt the conflict resolving, darkness receding as forgotten light shone. The Emperor, perceiving Vader's redemption and his defeat, unleashed a massive explosion of lightning. Yoda channeled all his life force, creating a protective barrier. The effort was far too immense, and Yoda staggered and fell. Obi-Wan cut through the Emperor's defenses. Luke ran to Yoda while others surrounded Palpatine. "It's over, Palpatine," declared Obi-Wan. Luke held Yoda in his arms. "Proud of you I am," whispered Yoda. "The new Jedi Order, live it will continue. My journey, complete it is." Leia knelt beside them. "We will never forget your teachings." Yoda looked at each student, then Obi-Wan. "Grand Master now you are. Guide them well, you will." Yoda's body glowed and disappeared, becoming one with the Force. The battle ended with the Emperor's capture and Anakin's redemption. Now free from his armor being treated by rebel medics, Imperial forces surrendered en masse. As the sun rose over Yavin, the new Jedi Order stood united, victorious but marked by the loss of their greatest master. Obi-Wan Kenobi, now Grand Master, gathered his students. Luke and Leia side by side, siblings finally united. Ahsoka and Ezra representing the bridge between old and new order. Anakin watched from afar, tears running down a face that hadn't seen light in decades. The Jedi Order, reborn from the ashes, was ready to serve the galaxy again with humility and wisdom earned through suffering.